Moving quickly now into Module 3, we're going to be taking a look at why consumers buy and why companies hire. We're going to look at basic motivations and complex motivations, tribal culture and understanding your target audience, creating value for your target audience, what motivates the hiring manager, and researching the hiring manager. We're going to begin with something that I'm sure you've all seen at least one point in your life. Maslow's hierarchy of needs. These 5 steps of human motivation can be attributed to any brand or product or service out in the marketplace today. Whether it's a bottle of water, a new car, or a new iPhone, the brands lend themselves to at least one of these steps in Maslow's hierarchy. So let's talk about motivation from the real world. And let's talk about one of my favorite categories, although it's extremely boring, toothpaste. Ask yourself, why do you buy toothpaste? And the answer may come back to brush your teeth. But that's really just the physical act, the thing that you do with the toothpaste. What truly motivates you to buy toothpaste, though? Well, the first thing, of course, is healthy teeth and gums. No one wants to sit in the dentist chair. No one wants to have their teeth extracted or have the drill taken to them. It's a very unpleasant experience. And so that's one piece of motivation. The second, of course, is social acceptance. Who wants to walk around town with Austin Powers teeth, having people recoil in fear whenever time you smile? Now let's put that in the context of a hiring manager. A hiring manager posts a job, but that's just the physical act. What's the motivation behind that posting? Well, one motivation may be that the hiring manager is overworked, that he or she has had to take on extra work because they haven't been able to fill this position. And so they're stressed, unproductive, and unmotivated. Or perhaps that hiring manager has had to take that job and spread the duties out amongst his or her existing staff. And now they're unmotivated, unproductive, and overworked. And so that's one possible motivation. Another may be that the hiring manager is now bringing a new person into his or her existing culture. And they want that person to fit and do a great job. And so he or she is going to be cautious about who they bring in, and they're going to be rewarded if who they actually bring into the group succeeds and becomes a relevant member of the group. And so there's various levels there, various stages of potential motivation behind the job posting. And that's something for you to consider when you're looking at a job. What is the motivation for that hiring manager? What is truly troubling them, and how can you help? There's a fairly recent concept in marketing circles known as tribal culture. And the idea is to really get to the heart of the consumer's thinking. You need to act and behave as the consumer does. You need to walk a mile in their shoes. Some of the attributes of tribal culture can be needs, wants, motivations, objectives, priorities, fears, risk, and what they consider respect. Once you understand your target market from that level, then you can truly start to define what value is to them and how you can create value for them. For me, there's no better example of how marketers have used the concept of tribal culture for their marketing purposes than Dove. Dove is an extremely old brand, and for decades they were out in the marketplace talking about one thing: the fact that their soap was made up of 1/4 moisturizing cream. They said that in every ad, in every piece of creative. That was their point of differentiation, and they stuck with it for years. Of course, the soap market share is typically pretty stagnant. The lines stay the same. And so Dove decided they wanted a game changer. They wanted something that was going to truly differentiate them and make them stand out within the soap market. So they dug deep. They embraced the idea of tribal culture and went out to truly understand what it was to live the lives of their target consumer. And this is what they came out with: the Dove Real Beauty campaign. For my money, one of the most important and most impactful brand marketing campaigns in recent memory. Dove marketers went out and spoke to their target audience, typically females 35 to 40 years old with young families. And what they found was that their target audience really resented the health and beauty industry. They felt that for decades, the health and beauty industry were representing women in a light that was not just unfavorable, but unrealistic. They were concerned about the message that drove to them, how that affected their sense of well-being. But more importantly, they were also afraid about how that message was being translated to their daughters. And so they came out with Real Beauty and changed the market almost overnight. They not only came out with some ads talking about what real women look like and how real women feel, they also took that message into the marketplace, into the communities, into schools, into community groups, and not once did they ever mention a bar of soap. They just talked about what real beauty means to real women, and of course used the Dove logo at the end. Their market share took off and was a real game changer for Dove and for the soap industry. Here's another example, and let's see if you can find the motivation. So this is one of my favorites, not a car I drive, of course, but one day that I hope to. It's the BMW 6 Series, and this is a still ad from a popular men's magazine. It simply says, "You owe you." So what's the motivation here? Well, for me, this is about an older male, somewhere in his late 40s, early 50s. He's been working all of his life, has sacrificed, has spent what money he has on his family, has sent his children off to college, and now is sitting there in a position where he can finally afford something that he's really always wanted, but never been able to acquire. And this is really what this ad is all about, is saying to you, as the target consumer, okay, you've sacrificed, you've worked hard, you've been selfless, you've done everything for everybody else, now it's your turn, it's your time to enjoy the fruits of your labor. Here's another example. Who do you think this ad is speaking to? Well, if you're thinking kids, I would think again. This ad, or the collection of ads in front of you, is really speaking to me, a parent. You see, as parents of children, you want your kids to be happy. You want them to be socially outgoing, you want them to be accepted, you want your kids to be one of these kids, happy, smiling, and ultimately looking really cool. As a parent, I can tell you that it's been a long time since I've been cool, and so you want your kids to be cool. And that's what this ad really does, is it looks at kids in a light that is happy and fun and invigorated. Again, they're well-adjusted, socially accepted individuals, and of course, that makes you happy as a parent. And that's the motivation behind this ad. Here's our last example, and it's one of my favorites. In 1977, when I was about 7 or 8 years old, and you can do the math, George Lucas came out with a movie called Star Wars. And I'll never forget going to see it with my mother and my brother and absolutely losing my brains. 35 years later, I showed Star Wars to my 7-year-old son and was really pleased to watch him losing his brains. And ever since then, it's been a shared experience. My son and I play with the toys together, we read the books, we watch the movies, we leaf through encyclopedias talking about the characters. It's real quality time for my son and I. It's something that we share. And that's the idea behind this ad. Star Wars as a brand has done an amazing job in continuing to replenish its target audience, but it's never forgotten its original audience. And the idea is to bridge that generation and make sure that those two generations are spending quality time together. That, again, as a parent, is something I'm always looking to do, and that's what this ad does for me. So, congratulations, you've secured that interview, and now you're preparing to go in there and wow them. Well, you're looking at talking to a target market. That hiring manager, that recruitment manager is no different than a consumer that a brand manager is trying to reach. And so the idea here is to try and understand the corporate tribal culture that you're walking into. What are some of the things you can do? Well, a great place to start, of course, is the company's website and social feeds. You get a great sense of who this company is, what they stand for, what their mission is, their values, what are some of the challenges that they might be facing, and what's really important to them over the next 6 to 12 months. Another thing is an annual report. If you're dealing with a publicly traded company, there's no better place to start your research than the annual report that they publish every year. I'm going to be going into depth a little bit later on how to read an annual report, but it's a terrific place to start your research. Of course, there's desktop research. Using Google or any other search engine, make sure you're going out and checking out that company, going into the news section, really getting an understanding of what's happened to that company over the last 12 months, what's happened with some of the key executives. Again, what's keeping that company up at night? What are their challenges? What are they motivated by? How are they winning and losing? This is all terrific research for you to create compelling questions, but also for you to really understand how you might create value for them. Lastly is a peer-to-peer interview. Is there anybody that you know that knows somebody that used to work at that company? Any kind of networking that you can do to get a glimpse behind their curtain to understand what it's really like to work for that company. And that's when you can really start to create value and understand how your skills and your background and your experience can speak to their needs and truly allow you to communicate your value to them.